Hero guide dogs assure good home after New York rescue. The guide dog that leaped onto subway tracks after his blind owner lost consciousness and fell off a station platform is assured a loving home after his retirement. Cecil Williams, who has been recovering at a hospital with Orlando by his side, had been slated to get another working dog in January or February to replace the 11-year-old Black Lab. Now, he would ideally like to have two dogs, one working and one retired as a pet, if logistic, physical abilities, and finances allow. If that's not possible, the family that raised Orlando as a puppy says it will be absolutely thrilled to have him back, said Guiding Eyes for the Blind spokeswoman Michelle Breyer. They are very thrilled that their little baby has made such a big difference. Williams told the Associated Press on Tuesday that he couldn't pay for a non-working dog, so he was planning to look for a good home for Orlando. Guiding Eyes, based in Yorktown Heights, New York, provides working dogs for free but cannot cover retired dogs' expenses. After the AP published its interview and photographs of Williams with Orlando in his hospital room, St. Luke's Roosevelt Hospital Center has been fielding queries from well-wishers offering money and other assistance. Guiding Eyes has graciously stepped forward to handle those inquiries, said hospital spokesman Jim Mandler. Williams said that if he decides he's able to care for two dogs, he'd need help paying for the lab's care. We don't know yet what Cecil will choose to do, said Breyer. He's in a tough place right now. It's an incredibly emotional, dramatic time. The organization was setting up a fund and planned to post information on its website. If it turns out Williams doesn't need the money, it will be used for a lot of other guide dogs, according to Breyer. Also Wednesday, the Animal Medical Center, which already provides veterinary care to Orlando and other guide dogs, say in a statement it will treat Orlando for free after he retires. Williams, 61, and Orlando both escaped serious injury Tuesday when they were bumped by a train passing over them, a miraculous end to a harrowing ordeal that began when Williams fell faint on his way to the dentist. Witnesses say Orlando barked frantically and tried to stop Williams from tumbling off the platform. Matthew Martin told the New York Post that Orlando leaped onto the tracks as the train approached and kissed Williams to entice him to move. Williams said Wednesday that he's feeling a little bit better, but wasn't sure how long he'd be hospitalized. My head is still a little sore where I put the staples in. There are bruises on my body, he said. Left still got to run the test, trying to find out what caused it. Walking Dead creator sues AMC over profit. The creator of The Walking Dead is suing AMC over what he claims is an effort to deny him tens of millions of dollars in profit from the hit drama. Oscar-nominated writer-director Frank Darabont and creative art agency filed suit Tuesday in New York Supreme Court against defendants including AMC Network Entertainment LLC. Their suit claims that despite 4 seasons of unprecedented programming success and profitability for the defendant, Darabont hasn't received any profit for developing the series. AMC declined Wednesday to comment on the suit, which also alleged that Darabont was fired as producer without cause. He developed The Walking Dead from Robert Kirkman's comic book series about zombies. The lawsuit alleged that AMC decided to produce the series in-house and pays itself a deliberately low license fee to air it, engaging in what the suit labels the improper and abusive practice of self-dealing. The sole goal of this sham transaction is to enhance the profit of the parent company by minimizing the revenues that go into the pool of funds for the show's private participants, the suit alleges. The suit reflects others filed by creators of successful TV shows, including Will and Grace, when the studio licensed a show to be aired by an affiliated network or cable channel. The fee can fail to reflect fair market value and diminish payment to creators and others, such lawsuits argue. Darabant's legal action follows his clouded exit from The Walking Dead early in its second season and critical public comments he made about AMC. His suit claims that a formal agreement called for him to be paid as if the series were produced by an unaffiliated studio engaging in true arm's length negotiations over license fee. As of December 2012, 2 years after the show debuted, AMC's participation statement showed The Walking Dead had a $49 million deficit to overcome before Darabont or CAA could see their first dollar of profit. AMC's sham imputed license fee formula is clearly designed to ensure plaintiffs never see the first dollar, the suit contends. Theater goer. I started hearing noises, screaming. Scott Daniels, an American tourist from the Dallas area, was in the audience Thursday night when the Apollo Theater partially collapsed, injuring more than 80 people. In an interview with the Associated Press from his hotel room, Daniels recounted his experience. I'm visiting in London for 3 days before going to Germany to see my son, who's on a Fulbright grant, and to spend Christmas with him. The Apollo Theater is on Shaftesbury in the Piccadilly Circus area. I just happened to go by at 3:30 tonight and see if they had any ticket left. I just need a single. It's the play The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime, based on a novel by Mark Haddon. I read the book, and it's on a lot of book lists for a lot of school kids. It's gotten huge, great reviews in London, and it's all sold out. But I had one ticket available on the floor. I paid top dollars, £50.50. I was in row G on the aisle, seat 10, and that was in the center of the theater. And this theater was almost completely full. I was lucky to get one seat that I had left over. The show began at 7:30 local time in London. About 40 to 45 minutes into the show, there was a lot of action going on stage. And I was like maybe 6 rows back from the stage. It's a very intimate theater, and all of a sudden from behind, up in the balconies, in the upper levels, I started hearing noises, screaming. And first of all, I thought maybe this is a part of the play. There had been actors coming in from the aisles to go up on stage, so it wasn't unheard of to think maybe it was part of the play. All of a sudden, plaster started raining down, huge hunks of plaster. It's still all in my hair. The lights went out and everything filled with dust. Everybody was coughing and choking. I had on a white shirt, and it's all covered. It looks like soot. My face looks like I've just come out of fire area. It's all blackened. The theater filled with dust. I was wearing glasses, so it was on my glasses and I couldn't see, but I knew where I was. So I went directly toward the stage to the front row, headed left because I knew there was an exit. I was covering my head. Here was the person that was lying down that I helped up, and we went down the exit. I had a couple scrapes. Other people had more serious lacerations. I saw one woman, once we got outside, that was hysterical. London Metropolitan Police and fire rescue were trying to calm her down. Ambulances were coming in, of course, this being London, the holiday season, not knowing if this was structural ceiling collapse or, heaven forbid, a bomb. My coat is still there, under the rubble somehow. I've got a card of management. Hopefully I'll get my coat back tomorrow. Not enough evidence for Kenyatta trial, ICC prosecutor. International Criminal Court prosecutor Fatou Bensouda admitted Thursday she no longer had enough evidence to try Kenya President Uhuru Kenyatta for crimes against humanity, calling for a delay after witnesses pulled out. Kenyatta's repeatedly delayed trial on charges of masterminding violence after a 2007 election that left over 1,000 people dead and several hundred thousand displaced is set to start on February 5th. Bensouda says she took the exceptional decision after a key prosecution witness against Kenyatta said he was no longer willing to testify, and another key witness confessed to giving false evidence concerning a critical event in the case. Having carefully considered my evidence and the impact of the two withdrawals, I have come to the conclusion that currently the case against Mr. Kenyatta does not satisfy the high evidentiary standards required at trial, Bensouda said in a statement. I therefore need time to complete efforts to obtain additional evidence and to consider whether such evidence will enable my office to fully meet the evidentiary threshold required at trial, she said. It is precisely because of our dedication and sense of responsibility to the victims in this case that I have asked the judges presiding over the case for more time to undertake all remaining steps possible to strengthen the case to ensure justice for the victims, Bensouda said. The trials of Kenyatta and his deputy, William Ruto, on similar charges have been dogged by problems and delays, including witness withdrawal and Kenya's campaign to have the cases put on hold. Ruto's trial began on September 10th. Arguments include allegations that the court is targeting Africans and the Kenyatta's leaders need to be available to tackle Al-Qaeda-linked militants who have turned neighboring Somalia into a major global jihadist hub. Both men have pledged their cooperation with the ICC, but both have also complained that the cases, part of which they are obligated to attend in the Netherlands, were hampering their running of the country. Bensouda's office has accused Kenya of not cooperating with the court, including by failing to provide what it says is critical evidence in Kenyatta's case. Earlier this month, the UN Security Council rejected a draft resolution backed by African countries to suspend Kenyatta's and Ruto's trials for a year. African leaders frequently complain that the ICC discriminates against their continent. Both Kenyatta and Ruto, his one-time foe and now political partner, have maintained their innocence of charges of stoking the worst violence in the East African country since its independence in 1930. 1963. Obama administration says U.S. debt ceiling could be hit in February. The Obama administration warned Congress on Thursday that the government could run out of borrowing authority needed to help pay its bills as soon as February if lawmakers do not swiftly raise the federal debt ceiling. I respectfully urge Congress to take action and raise the debt limit at the earliest possible moment, Treasury Secretary Jack Lew said in a letter to congressional leaders. Congress passed a two-year budget deal on Wednesday to trim some spending cuts planned for next year, and the pact reduces the risk of government shutdown. But the legislation does nothing to avoid the potential unprecedented U.S. debt default that could occur if Washington does not raise the borrowing cap soon. In October, Congress and the administration suspended a $16.7 trillion cap on borrowing until February 7th. If the debt ceiling isn't raised by then, Treasury will be able to juggle money between government accounts for a few weeks to help just under the new limit. But Lew said the department would exhaust these so-called extraordinary measures sometime between late February and early March. After then, it would no longer be able to borrow to cover its expenses. While this forecast is subject to inherent variability, we do not foresee any reasonable scenario in which the extraordinary measures will last for an extending period of time, Lew said. Once it loses the ability to borrow, Treasury will pay its bills by relying on incoming revenue and any cash left in public coffers. After the money runs out, the government could start missing payment on its debt and other obligations, such as Social Security pensions. Many economists think a U.S. default could trigger a financial panic and perhaps even an economic depression. Heated debates in Washington over the debt ceiling have periodically roiled financial markets since 2011, when the risk of default helped prompt Standard & Poor's to downgrade Americans' debt rating. Political dysfunction again rattled Wall Street in October. In November, the Congressional Budget Office estimated the Treasury might be able to stave off defaulting on obligations next year until as late as June, depending on the strength of tax receipts. Some private sector analysts have also said the government could stretch its cash until around then. But the Treasury is holding firm that borrowing authority will expire no later than early March. A senior official said the Tuesday's cash flow estimate for next year includes the possibility that government revenues might be boosted by higher revenue due to faster economic growth or dividend payment from housing finance firms that are controlled by the government. Thai protesters march to oust PM. Postpone election. Anti-government protesters resumed marches in Bangkok on Friday, trying to energize supporters in the center of the Thai capital before a planned mass rally at the weekend to put pressure on Prime Minister Yingluck Shinawatra to step down. Yingluck called a snap election last week when the protests reached their height. She remains caretaker premier until the February 2nd vote, but has refused to push back the date to allow the drawing up of political reforms demanded by the protesters. Once the government has resigned, I would like to have other people who are neutral take charge, said protester Cyril Prechencham, as marchers prepare to leave the main rally site at Bangkok's Democracy Monument. About 160,000 protesters surrounded Ying Gluk's office on December 9th, but momentum has waned since then. The National Security Council said there were about 3,000 people at Friday's march, about half the size of the crowd when the latest round of protest marches kicked off on Thursday. Doubt remain over whether the election will take place as scheduled in February. The Election Commission said on Thursday it was worried it may not be possible to ensure a peaceful vote. The registration of political parties begins on Monday, with attention focused on whether the main opposition, Democratic Party, will decide to take part. Democrat lawmakers resigned from parliament this month to march with protest leader Suthep Thaugsuban, who was deputy prime minister in the Democrat-led government until 2011. Some agree with his call for reforms to be implemented before another election is held. But others believe their party, Thailand's oldest, should respect the democratic process and run for office. The party's decision is due on Saturday. Suthep says the election should be postponed until reforms are implemented by a People's Council. His movement will have a say in nominating. He says he wants to wipe out the electoral fraud, eradicate corruption, and reform state agencies, including the police. Above all, he wants to eradicate the influence on Thai politics of former Premier Thaksin Shinawatra, Ying Gluk's older brother, who is seen as the power behind her government from his base in Dubai. Thaksin, a former telecommunications tycoon, is adored by the rural poor because of cheap health care and other politics brought in while he was in power. He was toppled by the military in 2006 and now lives in self-imposed exile. He fled Thailand in 2008 before being sentenced to jail for abuse of power in a trial he says was politically motivated. Ying Gluk won a landslide victory in 2011, and her Pheu Thai party is well placed to win the next election because of Thaksin's enduring support in the populous north and northeast. Ranged against them are a royalist establishment, including top generals, that feels threatened by Thaksin's rise and the middle class that resent what it sees as its tax being spent on wasteful populist policies, the amount of vote buying. Suthep's movement again impetuous in early November after Ying Gluk's government tried to push through a political amnesty bill that would have allowed Thaksin to return home a free man. Troops clash in South Sudan. African states mediate. South Sudanese government troops battled to regain control of a flashpoint town and sent forces to quell fighting in a vital oil-producing area on Thursday, the fifth day of a conflict that has deepened ethnic divisions in the two-year-old nation. The conflict, which has so far killed up to 500 people, has alarmed South Sudan's neighbors. African mediators held talks with President Salva Kiir on Thursday to try to broker peace, and U.S. President Barack Obama urged the clashing faction to stop fighting. The clashes that erupted around the capital, Juba, on Sunday night have quickly spread, pitting loyalists of the former vice president, Riek Machar, a Nuer, against Kiir, a member of the dominant Dinka clan. Machar, whose dismissal in July led to months of tensions, has denied Kiir's accusation that he had led a coup attempt. Rivals have fought fierce gun battles over the town of Bor, north of Juba, the scene of a 1991 massacre by soldiers loyal to Machar of hundreds of Dinkas. Thousands of people have sought refuge in UN bases, including 200 oil employees in a main crude-producing region. UN officials say one base in Jonglei State, where Bor is located, was breached by Nuer, and there may have been deaths. The fighting adds new instability to an already volatile region of Africa, derailing the young and undeveloped nation's halting effort to build a functioning state. The team of mediators sent by the Addis Ababa-based African Union arrived in Juba for talks. An Ethiopian official said representatives were from Ethiopia, Kenya, Uganda, and Rwanda, the first major peace initiative since clashes first erupted. The African Union is until now meeting with the president, spokesman Anthony Weck said, without giving details of the team. Their message is that they are trying to broker peace between the two forces. Atani said Bor was in the hands of Machar's forces. Bor has surrendered actually because the forces that were in Bor were mainly loyal to Machar, he said. They control the town, but government forces are trying to retake the town. In Washington, Obama issued a statement saying the conflict threatened to derail progress South Sudan has been making since gaining independence. Inflammatory rhetoric and targeted violence must cease, Obama said. All sides must listen to the wise counsel of their neighbors, commit to dialogue, and take immediate steps to urge calm and support reconciliations. Jody Jonglei Boyers, a senior official in Juba, said his family were trapped in Bor and were trying to reach a UN camp for safety. There is no fighting at all because the soldiers who were in Bor town evacuated as of this morning, he said. UN diplomats have estimated between 400 and 500 dead in the clashes and say about 20,000 people have flocked to the bases of UN peacekeepers for refuge. But the United Nations says its 7,000 to 8,000 peacekeepers will not intervene in the conflict. A UN base in Akobo in Jonglei State was attacked on Thursday, and the United Nations received reports that some people had been killed. Deputy UN Secretary General Jan Eliasson said the situation in Jonglei has deteriorated, he said. A UN spokesman said that 2,000 or so oil workers who fled to a UN base in the Bantu oil-producing area were expected to be evacuated by the company, which he did not name. Mabakland Damading, deputy governor of Unity State, one of the main oil-producing areas, said forces were sent to Unity Field, where 5 people were killed after workers fought with spears and sticks, and to Tarjat Field, where 11 were killed. It is stable now, he told Reuters. China National Petroleum Corp, India's ONGC, Videsh, and Malaysia's Petronas are the main firms running the oil fields. Total has exploration acreage in country. South Sudan, a nation the size of France, has the third largest reserves in sub-Saharan Africa after Angola and Nigeria, according to BP. Oil production, which had been about 245,000 barrels per day, supplies the government with most of its revenues. A tension in South Sudan mounted following the sacking of Machar, the former vice president, said Kiir was acting like a dictator. The president said his rivals were reviving the split of 1991 that led to bloodshed. South Sudan declared independence from Sudan in 2011. A persistent dispute with Sudan over their border, oil, and security have added to the sense of crisis. The row led to the shutting of oil production for about 15 months until earlier this year, slashing state revenues and undermining efforts to improve public services in a nation of 11 million people, but with barely any paved roads.